There is a hidden danger in the way we look at people. You believe you know who someone is, but what if I told you that much of what you think you see is a carefully painted illusion, a mask built to hide something deeper, darker, and far more real? We live surrounded by personas, smiling faces, kind gestures, reassuring words, but beneath them, something else stirs. And Jung warned us, if you want to see the truth of someone's character, you cannot listen only to what they say, or even to what they show when the lights are bright. You must look where the shadows fall. You must see them where they cannot hide. Think about it. How many times in your life have you trusted someone who later revealed a side of themselves you never expected? A friend who turned cold the moment you no longer served their needs. A colleague who smiled while competing against you in silence. A lover who seemed perfect until the cracks in their mask appeared. It's not just disappointment, it's betrayal. It cuts deep because it exposes a truth. You were looking at the mask, not the soul, and you paid the price. Jung believed that character is revealed not in the easy moments, but in the crucible of human interactions where the ego has no script prepared. If you want to know who someone truly is, Jung insisted you must pay attention to just two things. Two simple, almost invisible tests of authenticity. And yet, when you learn to see them, they open the entire map of the soul. They tell you who is safe, who is dangerous, who will stand by you when life collapses, and who will vanish into the shadows. But first, let's look deeper at why this matters. We live in a world of appearances. From the moment we wake, we are surrounded by people presenting curated versions of themselves. On social media, in workplaces, even at the dinner table. Everyone is performing, even you. The mask, what Jung called the persona, is the face we show the world. It is polished, likable, acceptable, and it serves a purpose. Without masks, society would collapse into chaos. Yet, Jung warned, the mask is not the self. And if you mistake the persona for the person, you will suffer. The true self hides behind shadows, and the shadow is not always evil. It is simply what is repressed, ignored, denied. The shadow contains aggression, envy, fear, and rage. But it also contains strength, creativity, independence. When you meet someone, you are rarely introduced to their shadow, but their shadow exists, and sooner or later, it shows itself. The question is, will you be blind when it does, or will you see it coming? Here lies the problem. Most people look at surface gestures, words, politeness, charm, but these are unreliable. Jung said, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. That means you must learn to observe beyond the obvious, to penetrate the illusion. And to do this, you must know the two moments where masks always collapse. The two moments where the hidden soul is revealed. The first is simple but devastating, how someone treats those who can do nothing for them. This is the first lens through which you must look at human character. Watch carefully how a person acts with the powerless, the invisible, the ones who have no influence or value to them. Notice how they treat the waiter, the cleaner, the stranger in the street. Notice how they speak when no one important is listening. This reveals more about their soul than all their speeches combined, because in those moments, the ego has nothing to gain. There is no applause, no reward, no mask to polish. What spills out is truth. Think of the person who radiates charm in meetings but cuts down the assistant with contempt when the door closes. Think of the family member who speaks of kindness but humiliates the silent ones at the table. Think of the friend who flatters the powerful but mocks the weak. In those moments, the shadow peeks through. They may believe no one sees, but Jung would remind you, these are the cracks in the mask. And the cracks always reveal the foundation beneath. Why is this so revealing? Because As Nietzsche wrote, "The true measure of a man is how he treats someone who cannot harm him nor help him." In the powerless encounter, the game of manipulation collapses. You see not their performance, but their instinct, and instinct does not lie. This is why so many people misjudge character. They look only at how they themselves are treated. If someone is kind to them, they assume kindness is universal. But watch long enough, and you will notice the fracture. The same kindness is not extended to everyone. And when that fracture appears, you are staring directly at the shadow. And here lies the uncomfortable truth. One day, you may become the powerless one in their eyes. One day, when you no longer serve their ego or ambitions, you will be treated as they treat the powerless today. Jung teaches us not to ignore this. What they do to others, they will one day do to you. This is the first key to decoding character. But there is a second, and the second is even more dangerous, because if the first reveals how people act when they have nothing to gain, the second reveals how they act when they are denied what they desperately want. And here, masks collapse completely. Imagine someone who smiles with ease, who radiates kindness, who speaks of peace. Now imagine telling them no. No to their request, no to their desire, no to their ego. Watch what happens. In that moment, the shadow does not whisper, it screams. Jung would remind us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Rejection, denial, frustration, these are the torches that light up the shadow, and when the shadow burns, you see who they truly are. But this, the second revelation, we will explore deeply in the next part, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It will forever change how you look at the people around you, and it may even change how you look at yourself. When you first realize that character is revealed in the small, powerless interactions, you start to see the world differently. Suddenly, the smile that seemed warm begins to look rehearsed. The praise that once flattered you begins to sound hollow, because you know something now. Kindness that is selective is not kindness at all. It is performance. And Carl Jung warned that the persona, the mask we present to the world, is not truth. It is a role, carefully crafted to survive and succeed. Think about it. How many times have you seen someone act with perfect grace in public, only to turn sharp and cruel when they believe no one of importance is watching? That gap, that fracture, is the point where the mask slips. Jung said, "The persona is what one would like to be, not what one is." And this means the performance always breaks under pressure. The question is, are you watching closely enough to catch it? Let me give you an image. Imagine a king walking through his kingdom. Surrounded by nobles, he speaks with eloquence and dignity. His words inspire, his gestures seem noble. But then, in a back alley, a beggar approaches. No reward, no recognition, no audience. How the king treats that beggar is more honest than all his speeches combined. In that moment, the crown falls and the shadow speaks. It is the same in everyday life. Watch the manager with their team, then watch them with the intern. Watch the celebrity with the cameras on, then with the waiter. Watch the family member who praises you in public, but cuts another sibling down in private. The truth of their soul is not revealed in their polished performances, but in the unnoticed corners where power and status no longer matter. This is why Jung insisted that true awareness is uncomfortable. Because once you begin to see, you cannot unsee. Once you notice how someone belittles the powerless, every word of kindness they speak to you will feel contaminated. You will always wonder, is this kindness for me, or is it another performance? And here lies the hidden danger. If you ignore these signs, you set yourself up for betrayal. The person who mocks the powerless today will abandon you tomorrow, when you can no longer serve them. Jung called this the projection of the shadow. What people try to hide from themselves is always revealed in how they treat others. When someone disowns their own cruelty, it leaks out in contempt for the weak. When they disown their envy, it leaks out in subtle sabotage. The shadow always speaks, even when the mask is perfect. Nietzsche saw the same truth. He wrote that human beings are driven by will to power, the desire to control, to dominate, to expand. And when someone acts kindly only to those who can help them, it is not kindness but strategy. It is Machiavelli's principle in action: appear virtuous but act in self-interest. Do you see the danger? If you take the mask as the truth, you are living in their strategy. You are a pawn on their chessboard, but when you learn to see, you step off the board. You are no longer a piece to be moved. You become the one who watches the game, not the one trapped inside it. That is the power Jung wanted you to have, not cynicism, but vision, the ability to pierce through illusions. Let's bring this down to something personal. Perhaps you remember a moment when someone's true character shocked you. Maybe it was in a workplace, when a boss who praised team spirit berated an assistant for a small mistake. Maybe it was in your family, when a relative who spoke of love and respect humiliated someone quieter. Maybe it was in a relationship, when a partner who swore unconditional love revealed cold indifference the moment you said something they did not want to hear. These moments scar because they force you to admit you were fooled. But Jung would tell you, you were not weak. You were simply unconscious of the mask. Now you are learning to see. You are learning the first rule, to watch how someone treats those who have no power over them. And once you see, you cannot go back. It is both gift and burden. Yet Jung warned that this is only half the picture, because there is another crucible where masks collapse, and this one is even more dangerous. If the first truth reveals how people act when there is nothing to gain, the second reveals how they act when there is something to lose. This is where the second test comes. Watch carefully how someone behaves when they are denied what they desire. This could be attention, status, validation, or even love. Denial is the ultimate torch. It lights up the shadow like fire in a cave. The true character is revealed not when someone is given what they want, but when they are told no. Imagine a friend who is generous when you always agree, but who turns hostile the moment you resist. Imagine a partner who showers you with affection, but who withdraws and punishes when you don't comply. Imagine a leader who praises freedom, but who lashes out when their own authority is questioned. These are not small reactions. They are glimpses of the soul stripped bare. Jung would tell you that rejection, frustration, and denial expose the unconscious more clearly than any other force. When the ego is deprived, the shadow surges. And it is in these moments you must watch closely. Because here, the second and final key to character is revealed, and in the next part, we will go into this second revelation. We will enter the heart of the shadow, the moment where masks shatter completely. And you will learn how to see people, not as they pretend to be, but as they truly are. The most dangerous moment in human interaction is not when someone is smiling at you. It is not even when they are criticizing you. The most dangerous moment is when you tell them no, when you deny them something their ego craves: attention, power, validation, control. Because in that instant, the mask they have carefully worn begins to fracture. And if you are watching closely, you will see what Carl Jung warned about, the shadow stepping forward. Think about your own life. Have you ever noticed how quickly affection can turn into coldness when you stop feeding someone's ego? How fast politeness becomes cruelty when you no longer play the role they expected? These moments feel shocking, almost unreal. But they are not accidents. They are revelations. They show you who the person really was all along. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Most people live controlled by their unconscious drives. They believe they are kind, generous, virtuous, but the moment they are denied, their unconscious erupts. Anger, jealousy, resentment, cruelty, it was always there. They simply kept it hidden until you lit the match. This is why rejection is so powerful. When someone is told no, when their will to power is blocked, their entire identity is threatened. The persona, that smiling, polished mask, cannot survive frustration. It cracks under pressure, and through those cracks, you glimpse their true soul. Let me tell you a story. A man is praised as a devoted friend. He is always present, always supportive, as long as you agree with him, as long as you validate his views. But one day, you refuse. You set a boundary. You say no. In that moment, the image of the loyal friend collapses. Suddenly, he is no longer supportive but hostile. He withdraws his presence, punishes with silence, speaks behind your back. What changed? Nothing. You simply removed the fuel that fed his persona. The mask fell and the shadow screamed. Or imagine a romantic relationship. At first, everything is intoxicating. The partner showers you with affection. They promise loyalty, connection, even eternity. But then, for the first time, you resist. You do not comply with their demand. You refuse to bend. Watch carefully what happens. For some, love deepens with respect. But for others, the mask collapses instantly. The warmth becomes coldness. The promises turn to accusations. The love reveals itself as conditional. And Jung would whisper to you, "This is not a change, it is a revelation." The mask was only sustained by compliance. Why does this happen? Because the shadow lives in the repressed desires of the ego. When those desires are blocked, the shadow bursts forth. This is the second great key to character. Observe how people react when they do not get what they want. This is when manipulation fails. This is when performance ends. This is when the unconscious steps into the light. Nietzsche understood this as well. He wrote of the Übermensch, the one who creates their own values. But most people are not free creators. They are dependents of external validation. Their smiles and kindness are contingent, fragile. The moment they are denied what they expect, resentment consumes them. Nietzsche called this ressentiment, the poison of envy and bitterness that festers in the soul of those who cannot bear rejection. Watch someone in denial, and you will see whether they are strong or broken. Machiavelli, too, hinted at this truth. In The Prince, he argued that appearances are everything, that rulers must seem virtuous while pursuing power. But he also admitted that the true test of character is how rulers respond when their control is challenged. Do they rule with measured wisdom, or do they collapse into paranoia and cruelty? This is the same test you can apply to anyone around you, and it is merciless in its accuracy. So how do you see this in daily life? Watch carefully the small moments of denial. A colleague who is overlooked for praise, a family member whose request is refused, a friend who is told not today. What emerges in those moments is raw, unfiltered truth. If they respond with patience, with dignity, with respect, you have seen strength of character. If they respond with bitterness, anger, cruelty, you have seen the shadow unleashed. This is why Jung believed awareness is liberation. Because once you understand these two tests, how someone treats the powerless and how they behave when denied, you no longer live in illusion. You are no longer blindsided by betrayal. You begin to see the archetypal patterns beneath human behavior. You see the mask, the shadow, the projection, the dance between persona and truth. But there is also a deeper, uncomfortable truth. This test does not only apply to others, it applies to you. How do you treat those who cannot help you? How do you react when denied what you want? These questions burn because they pierce the ego. But Jung would say, this is the path to individuation, the process of becoming whole, authentic, unshakable. Only by confronting your own shadow do you earn the power to see others clearly. And this is where the transformation begins. When you stop judging character by surface gestures and begin judging by shadow reactions, you gain a kind of X-ray vision. You see the fractures in the mask. You recognize danger before it consumes you. You protect your energy, your trust, your soul. But what happens once you see? What happens when you look at the people around you and realize how many masks you once believed? This is the question that leads us into the final part, because seeing is not enough. You must also act. You must learn how to live with this awareness, how to protect yourself without becoming cynical, how to cultivate your own authenticity without fear. And that, the climax of Jung's teaching on character, shadow, and individuation, is what we will explore in the final part, because once you walk through this door, you cannot go back. You will never see people the same way again. You now stand at the threshold of a dangerous gift. You have learned the two keys to human character, how someone treats those who can do nothing for them, and how they behave when denied what they want. With these, you are no longer blind. You can see through masks, beyond performances, past illusions, but sight without action is torment, because once you see the truth of people, you cannot go back to innocence. The question is, what will you do with this awareness? Carl Jung believed that the path of awareness is not meant to make you cynical, but to make you free. To see clearly is not to hate humanity, but to accept it fully, shadows and all. He said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You do not rise above betrayal, manipulation, or disappointment by ignoring them, but by confronting them head-on, seeing them for what they are, and refusing to live in illusion any longer." At first, this awareness will feel heavy. You may look around at your friends, your family, your colleagues, and begin to notice masks everywhere. Smiles that feel hollow, words that no longer ring true, acts of kindness that are tied with strings. It will disturb you, it will unsettle you, it may even make you feel lonely, because when you see illusions clearly, you realize how much of the world is built upon them. But Jung would remind you, this loneliness is not punishment, it is initiation. To see is to separate yourself from the unconscious herd. It is to step out of the dream of appearances and into the clarity of the soul. And while this may isolate you from the comfort of illusions, it also makes you rare. Most people live asleep, fooled again and again by masks. You will not. You will see. And in that sight, you will find both power and freedom. Let's imagine how this plays out in real life. Suppose you are at work, surrounded by colleagues who compete behind the veil of cooperation. Before, you might have trusted every flattering word, every performance of teamwork. Now, you notice more. You see who ignores the powerless, who mocks the vulnerable, who withdraws affection when denied their way. You see the shadow operating beneath the surface, and because you see it, you cannot be deceived. Their manipulation loses its power. You are free, or imagine in relationships. Before, you may have given yourself away to people who wore masks of love, but hid shadows of control. Now, you know to test not only how they treat you when they want you, but also how they treat those who cannot serve them. You watch how they react to frustration, to boundaries, to no. And when the mask collapses, you do not cling to the illusion. You recognize the shadow and you walk away. You are free. This is the transformation Jung promised. The movement from unconscious victim to conscious observer, from pawn to player, from mask to authentic self. It does not mean you will never be hurt again, but it means you will never be blind again. And blindness, Jung believed, is the root of suffering. Awareness is liberation, but awareness must be practiced. So how can you apply this vision in daily life? Begin with simple, practical steps. First, practice silence. When you are with others, learn to step back from the noise of words and watch. People will always reveal themselves if you give them space. Do not rush to fill silences, to comfort egos, to validate masks. Observe. Watch how they treat the waiter, the driver, the stranger. Watch how they react when told no. In silence, their truth emerges. Second, practice boundaries. Boundaries are the ultimate test of character. They are small denials, and they force the mask to tremble. Set boundaries with kindness but firmness. Watch carefully how people respond. Do they respect you, or do they retaliate? Do they adapt with maturity, or do they collapse into resentment? In that reaction, you will see the shadow. Third, practice self-reflection. Jung warned that projection is a trap. We see in others what we refuse to see in ourselves. So ask yourself, how do I treat those who cannot help me? How do I respond when denied? Be brutally honest. Your own answers will either humble you or empower you. And by confronting your own shadow, you become stronger, clearer, freer. These practices are not small, they are revolutionary. They turn life into a mirror of truth. Every encounter becomes a revelation. Every relationship becomes a test of authenticity. And slowly, your circle changes. The manipulators and performers fade because you are no longer deceived. The authentic, the rare, the unshakable remain. And with them, you build a life not of illusions, but of truth. But let us return to the deepest question. Why does this matter? Why does it matter to see character so clearly? Because your life is shaped by those you allow close. Betrayal wounds, manipulation drains, illusions waste years. But when you learn to see people as they truly are, you protect your soul. You guard your energy. You save your years. And perhaps most importantly, you create space for authentic love, authentic friendship, authentic purpose. Jung's psychology was never meant to stay in books. It was meant to transform the way you live, to make you more aware, more authentic, more powerful. And this is what these two keys to character give you. They are not tricks, not strategies, not cynicism. They are sight, they are awareness, they are freedom. So as you leave this message and return to your world, carry these questions with you. How does this person treat the powerless? How do they behave when denied? And do not only ask of others, ask it of yourself. Ask it until the answers become clear. Because Jung believed that self-knowledge is the foundation of all wisdom. To know others without knowing yourself is still blindness. But to see both yourself and others, that is individuation. That is wholeness. And now I ask you, are you ready to see? Are you ready to stop living in illusions, to stop being deceived by masks, to stop giving your trust to shadows? If you are, then write it in the comments below. I choose awareness, because awareness is the beginning of freedom, and freedom is the beginning of power. If this message spoke to you, if it stirred something inside, then subscribe to this channel. Stay with us on this journey of philosophy, psychology, and human transformation. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, and let's awaken more eyes together, because the world needs fewer illusions and more truth. And truth begins here, with you.